Hi, Erin. My name's Robert. Feel really honored to be in this space with you this evening, and just really excited to hear what you have to share. And feel free to get started whenever or wherever you feel comfortable.
Yeah, hi. Um, yeah, not 100% sure what I want to talk about, but I know, or what angle I guess I want to approach it, but I've been having some just I don't know, challenges with a friend of mine. Um, yeah, we've been friends for a few years, but I feel like the last few months is kind of, I don't know, just these big shifts have happened and yeah, we've she started to I don't obviously I don't know what angle I want to say, but
Mm.
this feels like a big topic. But um yeah, I felt like it was a very easy friendship for a long time.
Mhm.
But then I felt like she kind of started shifting and acting like how like we were like new friends
Okay.
and kind of testing me and
Mhm.
trying to impress me and just
Mm.
strange behavior to me. And for a long time, I just kind of tried to act like things were normal.
Yeah.
And um, I tried, then I started to try to kind of like talk to her about it. And
Mm.
um, I don't know, there's kind of been a lot of uncovering lately I'm
Mm.
grateful she has been willing to talk about it, but yeah, she's kind of said, yeah, I have been testing you and I have been
Mm.
trying to impress you. And I have she's kind of owning up to a lot of, not owning up, but just being vulnerable about a
Mm.
lot of kind of issues from her childhood and insecurities
Right.
and a lot of jealousy. And
Mm.
it's just been, I feel like I've kind of been just trying to help her the whole time. And
Mm.
she talks a lot about this other girl and them talking about me a bunch behind my back and all this stuff. And um,
Mm.
I think lately I've started to realize like, oh, actually, I I'm hurt by what they're doing, and um,
Yeah.
it feels, um, yeah, I feel like I'm starting to kind of uncover some of my frustrations and emotions, and
Mm.
like my side of the story is valid, or I guess even just worth feeling, or I don't even know how I would put that, but
Yeah.
yeah, just the pain of like two of my friends talking about me behind my back and
Mm.
misconstruing things. And um yeah, I feel really frustrated that no one talked to me about anything. I feel I try to be pretty
Yeah.
direct when I notice something going on or I'm noticing my feelings. And yeah, how they see me just feels really unfair. And
Mm.
um yeah, I'm trying to kind of draw the line of, or figure out where the line is of, in scripture over and over again, people are, they feel like things are unfair or they feel misjudged or whatever, but
Yeah.
they're not trying to like pursue like, oh, everyone needs to understand me. Um, you just follow Jesus, you just follow Jesus. You don't need to fight your own battles. So where's that line of,
Mm.
yeah, I'm going to be misunderstood and yeah, I'm going to be, things aren't always fair. But there's grace and forgiveness and
Mhm.
I don't need to fight all of these battles. So there's that, but then there's
Mm.
also like, I feel like for for their behalf, like a lot of the things are just misunderstandings that I just want to like clear up. I don't know, but I
Yeah.
don't want to be, yeah, I don't want to be selfish
Mm.
either. So obviously I'm
Mm.
not too clear on how I feel
No.
about everything, but um yeah, that's kind of little rock I'm
Okay.
trying to unpack lately.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a rock. I think
Mm,
that's a really great word choice. And I think
mm,
to attempt to summarize, on the far my end, like as I was listening to you, you have this longtime friend. I'm not sure if it was childhood friend or not, but a longtime friend. Seems like it was good for a little bit, and then now it seems like it's in a definition of like a new friend, where it's this friend started me pursuing other questions or other reframing like friendships or stories, like you mentioned, like jealousy with like another friend, and like there's a lot of talk. You mentioned like talking behind their back, your back, and like how that makes you feel super uncomfortable and
mm,
untreated to. You have a strong you have a strong value in your spirituality. You have a strong like a real rootedness, and like you want to maintain truth to like scripture, God's word, and like you mentioned that too, and like how that is also a part of, is this a scenario where it's a like, at what point do I like pursue this thing, right? Or like this friendship or like these conversations, because it's bringing up things in you that you're not kind of like happy about, right? And I'm trying,
yeah.
and you were mentioning feelings of like frustration, hurt, um, but also just like wanting to move on and also doing the right thing. So,
Yes,
so I
there's a
think,
lot there. Yes. Hearing you
so,
say all those things, I'm like, oh, okay. It makes sense I have some conflicting feelings.
so where,
'Cause there's a
so
lot
where
there.
would you
Yeah.
like where would you like to start? Like, what would be one place in this conflict that you
Mm,
feel like you need to start in?
it's a great question. I think the starting point, as you were talking and kind of reflecting some of those things, was the question of like, do I just like cut and run? Or do
Mhm,
I sit and not necessarily cut and run, but how invested should I be?
mhm.
Um, because
So
yeah,
I wanted to pause you for just a minute. So sorry for the interruption if it felt like,
no,
but
I was scrambling in my mind.
well, you did something interesting, and I wanted to just kind of ask you, like you said, cut and run, and you kind of like cackled.
It's a good
Do
word,
you
cackle.
do do you do you
Yeah,
want to would you want to explain what that was?
yeah, yes. I think I probably fantasize about just being done. Um,
Mhm,
like escape. I I
mhm,
tend toward I definitely struggle with people pleasing. I
mhm,
like to think I'm mostly a recovered people pleaser, but
mhm.
it's still there. So,
Yeah.
it sounds like almost like naughty or something to be like, haha, I'm just gonna leave and you can deal with your own crap
Mm,
on your own by yourself. So I think
mhm.
that's was the cackling and glee fantasizing
Yeah.
about like just not having to deal with, yeah, really these kind of the two friends, but
Mhm,
um yeah, mostly the one. Uh
mhm.
I kind of feel like you made a huge mess and you're the one who's hurt by it. And like I am too, but I just want to
Right.
be just I just want to let you sit in it. But then there's
Sound
also a part of
yeah.
me that doesn't, that wants to kind of honor the history of the friendship and
Yeah.
at least I don't think we're going to be besties, but at least on her end,
Mm.
untangle some of it.
Right.
Then is that my responsibility?
Seems yeah. So yeah, you said a great word there, responsibility. Like it seems like you are a responsible person.
Mm,
You have great value, and
mm,
in wanting to do the right thing and wanting to honor the right thing. And that's a structure that you live by. right? And I think you're communicating that with this conflict that you're having with your friend. Because it seems like you mentioned like the gleeful leaving, right? Like the laughing, right?
Mhm.
The chuckle, I will say. No, not the cackle, the chuckle.
That's gentler. Mhm.
The chuckle is like associated with like this, like would you say it's like this free of departing, right? Like you're
Mm.
exercising an ability, you're exercising the choice of like, I'm not responsible anymore.
Mhm.
But yet you have conflict in that. And why
Mhm.
is that? Why do you have conflict in that?
Yeah. Well, I I had made a choice at one point to kind of just like like take my hands off. Like I'm not
Mhm,
going to like cut you out of my life. I just don't feel like that's what God really has for any relationship normally in most
mhm,
circumstances. But I'm not going to try to untangle the mess because for a long time I felt
right,
like she was kind of not um, addressing things.
mhm,
And like I said, I try to be kind of direct and just like not, yeah. Um, and yeah, I could tell there was stuff going on and she wasn't ready or she didn't want to own up to it or whatever it was. So I kind of just had that hands off approach for a while. Um, but now she is kind of talking about things and I felt like God kind of arranged I don't want to say run in because that sounds like a showdown or
mhm,
something, but like kind of we just crossed paths a few different
mhm,
times and I felt like he was tagging me to try again to ask her like, hey, what, are we okay? Like what,
right,
what, even though I knew we weren't okay, but like I
mhm,
felt like he started this thing. So now, and a lot of stuff then came out.
mhm,
So I don't want to like try to control it or try to like, yeah, force her to heal or deal
mhm,
with things. I don't want to take responsibility for her because she is her own person. Um, and I can't take responsibility for her anyway.
right,
Um, so I don't want to grab back on, but I also don't want to be, I guess, yeah, where's the line of she's kind of passive. So
mhm,
do I do I
mm,
just let things linger and she can kind of choose when, what she wants to talk about or never talk about,
mm,
um, or not? What is the role that God has for me in this? Because,
mm,
like I said, I feel like He kind of facilitated a re-entry into this realm of things. So that's where my
right,
conflict kind of is. It's like,
right.
yeah, I don't know if
So
that makes sense.
it does. No, it actually really, really does. Thank you for sharing. Um, and you mentioned that like, you sense that like God is pulling you in, right? Like you know that like there's stuff
Yep.
there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You explained it. And and so you know that God's pulling you in, right? And like the word you said was like tug. And it's like this tug happened in a moment where you kind of like saw this person
Mm-hmm.
again. Can you sit
Mm-hmm.
on that for a moment? Do you like to sit on tug?
Mm-hmm.
And can you explain to me what that is?
Yeah. I think not that I was unwilling, but I wasn't excited about it. Um, and I think I I had found so much just peace in letting go that I didn't really want to re-enter the situation.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's also some of my hesitancy in that um, I liked the previous season. I kind of wish
Mm,
I was still back in
hmm.
it, but I do see
Yeah.
I see God working and I see purpose in it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I've been hurt and I like to protect
Yeah.
myself. So there's that, there's also that layer of
Yeah.
like, I, yeah, I don't want to get hurt.
Yeah.
I don't want to, it's so much easier to just be like, balls in your court. But now I kind of have to like
Mm-hmm.
listen really close to the Lord and be really like walking a fine line. And I could get hurt again also.
Yeah.
So I think that's the tug. I didn't
Mm.
really want to walk that direction, but I
You
also
sense
felt
that,
compassion for her. Go ahead.
no,
Yeah.
compassion.
Yeah, I
Explain
felt
that.
compassion. So um
Mm.
I felt like my heart was a little hard
Mm.
when, well, yeah, I was going to say not to be a butthole, but it is just not a nice thing about me, but I felt myself being impatient with her.
Mm.
I felt and would be patient with her and just like, I don't want to sit and try to figure out all these 2 steps forward and 5 steps back and blah, blah, blah. And now you're testing me and you're saying to my face, like, yeah, I am testing you and I
Mm.
am trying to impress you. Like, I don't want to be friends with you anymore, which makes me feel bad. That makes me feel
Mm.
bad. But also that's legitimately how I felt. Um, I don't know. I feel like I'm getting lost in it, but yeah. So there was a bit of hard-heartedness, I think, in I think I probably should have let go earlier than I did. And I think
Mm.
um when yeah, I want to use like breakup language, but when you know you're supposed to break up with someone and you don't do it,
Mm.
you can get bitter. And I think I got a little hard-hearted or a little bitter of just like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even like you're so annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to feel bad about that. But yeah, so when I do feel like God kind of like softened my heart and I felt some compassion for her, which
Right.
felt hopeful also, but
Right.
also you could get hurt if you actually care. So
So
probably all
hopeful.
of those things.
Yeah. Hopeful for who?
I don't
Hopeful
know.
for who? I mean,
Probably
it's
both.
for both.
Hopeful for our friendship, like
Okay.
that we could still, I guess I don't want to leave a situation to where like it's not doesn't have to be like we're close friends, but where it's ending not on good terms and not talking about it feels
Mm.
yucky to me. So the
Yeah.
fact that we could actually communicate, I think hopeful for communication, hopeful for clearing the air. That's like my main goal. I think she
Right.
kind of wants to repair the friendship and like be friends, close friends again. And I don't want to say God can't do that, but
Yeah.
I'm not really interested in that.
Right.
But I would like to clear that air.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So
hopeful that I could do that.
we're get. Yeah. Now we're getting somewhere. Like to help summarize. You're talking about like, the tugging is like this pull, right? It's like this. It was this moment where you kind of saw her. You identify this from God because you're like, well, hey God, things were good, right? I didn't want to like be tugged back in. I had my
Yeah.
boundaries up, I had my walls up, right? Like you talked about, you explained like that was the posture that you put yourself in, right? But like this tugging is like that pulling of like aligning with a value that a strong value that have, which is responsibility, right? And another strong value that I have, which is following the Lord, right? Which is like following God's leadership in this. And so you believe it's only occurring because you said like, God has given you compassion. And so it's like you're following after that. You've also explained a little bit of like what you think that can lead towards hopefulness, which is either reparation of the relationship or just like a really good like separation and like everyone's fine. What's said is said, you understand one another. And but like that you still feel like you still feel like not convinced. Like, and I kind of like, I can see that you are saying like the right things of like why it's the right decision, but you're just like not there yet here, right?
Mhm.
So how do we focus on your heart? How do we focus
Yeah.
on what you're feeling towards this responsibility?
Yeah. I don't know. Um, I I think that's why I'm careful to walk that line of what is my responsibility, because I
Mm-hmm.
take on too much responsibility. I don't want to shirk my responsibilities, but I also don't want to be like, and this and this and this, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm weighed down by it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, yeah, I want to be wise and like learn the lesson of letting go of it all. I wasn't holding any responsibility, and that was really nice. And now that I feel like God's asking me to kind of pick up some of the responsibility, I don't want to pick up too much. So I feel like that is a big hesitancy. And also, I'm trying to stay in a place of compassion and not that
Mm-hmm.
place of kind of bitterness. Because yeah, or even be, I think part of me is like, okay, well, maybe we can just be friends and
Mm-hmm.
be hopeful, and then another part of me still sees like she has a long, long road, and I I don't want to say no if God wants me along for that road, but I don't think he does.
Mm-hmm.
So, or at least not right now, maybe. I don't know. I just feel like there's still so much. There's something about between the two of us, the way that
Mm-hmm.
she sees me is so off. Like I'm some sort of like, she used words like the president or like queen bee of like a friend
Wow.
group or whatever, these different things of, and I think she's intimidated by me, which
Mm-hmm.
feels so, it just shows me where she's at, that where I thought we were shoulder to shoulder peers, friends,
Mm-hmm.
she's seeing herself as one down and me as one up. And I don't think I can shoulder her feelings of inferiority. I can't help her to feel, to walk out of that. I think that's like a much deeper thing than a
Mm-hmm.
friend can walk through with someone, especially I don't think I'm the right person. I think I'm kind of realizing that. I think I'm partially realizing that as I'm saying it, that I'm not the right person to walk through it. Um, yeah, because I see us as peers and she
Right.
doesn't. So, and actually maybe I don't see her as a peer as much anymore, just seeing how
Mm-hmm.
where she's at. I do feel like it would be me helping her along, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe that would just feed into her feeling inferior if I'm
Right.
like the one who has it together and helping her out. Like,
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes sense, but
Yeah. Well, I wanted to help like, I don't know, it like reintroduce the third person in this conversation, right? And you have a lot of unsure feelings that you're having with your friend. You have a bunch of narratives, like you have, yeah, you share a lot of like, this could happen, or like this could happen, or she could respond this way. You described her as having like a passive attitude earlier. You described her as like maybe she's projecting fears of inferiority towards you. Um, and like these like status dynamics, right? I I wanted to bring back God into this conversation because again, He started it. He gave you a tug. He's giving you something that you didn't ask for, which was compassion. And so I want you to I want you to go back to tug. But instead of thinking about the tug between you and your friend, I want to think about tug in relation with you and God.
Mm.
And what does that feel like?
Like him tugging me to him, or him tugging me to, like, with his instructions or the
Uh,
situation.
you and God.
And
What
God,
do you and God feel like?
I just feel safe with God,
Hmm. You feel
which is a
safe
good
with God.
reminder. Hmm. Yeah, it's a good reminder because I don't feel safe in this circumstance.
Okay.
And I don't feel safe with her, and she doesn't feel safe with me. Um,
Hmm.
so that's a good reminder that I think I don't ever want to do the wrong thing. I don't ever want to um, let someone drop that I shouldn't,
Hmm.
or chase someone down that I shouldn't. So there's probably some fear there too of like doing the wrong thing, but that feels like just such a relief that I'm
Hmm.
safe with him and I don't have to
Hmm.
um, do it perfectly.
Yeah.
This is another one of my things. Got a
Yeah.
few things. Yeah.
Well, well, I think we made a really good start, and you probably feel like everything was really scattered, that everything was a lot of information. But I hope you feel more sure about what you know is certain, what you know is safe for you. That's such a
Mm-hmm.
strong word for you to use to describe your relationship with God and how you trust Him. And we know that this is a continual conversation that we're going to have, as we're going to talk about later on. Next session, we'll talk about goal setting. We'll talk about setting plans, about um, how you're going to either what your goals are, what your plans are for this friendship. But in all of this, I think we can affirm that God has been present in your life and has been guiding you, and that even in this situation that you don't want to go in, uh, He's there and He's been giving you gifts of His presence. You mentioned compassion, you mentioned tug, you mentioned safe, and so I want to end with you feeling those things with God as we'll take a break and we'll continue our next session about your friend, if that's okay.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you, Erin.
Yeah. That's cool.
Okay. Oh, wow. Good.
Well, it's interesting because I've kind of, hey, Aileen, I've kind of talked about this. Uh, well, yeah, it's hard to kind of put into words because it's a weird timeline,
Mhm.
but I've kind of been talking about this friendship and then things started happening. So I was talking about it
Mhm.
with like the first week or whatever, and then like stuff is happening. So now it's like changing. So I'm kind of trying to do multiple sessions, but I have a different counselor every time. So it's interesting. But yeah, I feel like okay. Well, definitely okay. Responses to help you feel understood. The all the strength stuff was so impactful to me.
Mhm.
Um, I felt very seen to
Mhm.
that. I felt like you understood me, and that you were pulling out my values. You were pulling out like things that like my principles that I live on, things that matter to me, and um yeah, things that just strengths.
Mhm.
So that was every time you did that, that was very helped me feel connected and understood. And I guess it also had a positive impact, and it probably was facilitative. Um, I felt like, yeah, um, positive or facilitative, I think, well, I guess this is also my biggest like disconnection is when you were like, oh, well, I guess my only disconnection was when you
Yeah.
said, like, let's bring God into it. And I was like,
Mm.
what? And then, but then you, like what you said of like, okay, go back to that feeling. And then all of a sudden I started to feel a lot of feelings and I was like, oh, and then yeah, I felt like it just anchored the whole session and gave
Mm.
me like, even though you were mentioning goal planning and stuff in the future, it gave me such direction of like, even though it's like sitting in God's presence, like that's usually the direction He has us go, is to just stay and sit and wait and be in
Yeah.
His presence, and not try to plan or control or manipulate or fear or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, so I did feel disconnected, but then I felt like such a deeper connection, and especially connection to God, but and in connection even to my own self and understanding. So that was really cool.
Good.
Um, and like, I don't know, in your reflections, you would say like, "Oh yeah, you said this," and I was like, "Oh, I said that." Like I didn't even remember saying some of the things you
Mm.
said that you kind of highlighted with your reflections, and it really, I felt like I just spewed like such random thoughts, and
Mm.
you kind of like wove them together in a way that helped me. I feel like I can grasp them now, like I can hold on to them and understand.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so a lot of your reflections, that was really facilitative for me too.
Good.
Um, responses were not accurate. I don't think you said anything not accurate. The broke connection, I said, yeah. I mean, a couple times I guess you started talking when I was talking, but mostly I didn't feel like that didn't break connection. I mean, maybe, um, I guess not break connection, maybe break train of thought, but
Yeah.
also I was talking a lot. So, um, um, yeah, I felt like I should have given you like a rundown before. See, like, here's what I'm trying to say. Okay, now let's start the session. So I'm not
Okay.
eating up the clock. But yeah, overall, I felt like um yeah, I felt like you were very willing to, just listen, that positive
Mhm.
regard, especially the beginning of the session. I felt like you kind of let me tell my story, just did some reflecting. It was very inviting, and um yeah, I felt like welcomed and understood. And those, a
Mhm.
couple of like, I think your first strengths reflection or whatever, I was like, oh, he already can like see that
Mm.
or tell that. So that I feel like really facilitated a quick, like,
Mm.
okay, he gets me, I can like just go from here.
Mm.
um and then I feel like you kind of had a little bit more feedback and a little bit more directing ish, or not really directing, but just distilling different things. And I think sometimes um I would say an idea, and then I would
Mhm.
kind of be like spinning around in that idea trying to figure out
Mhm.
what I just said. And so I think sometimes it was good that you kind of stopped me and distilled the idea, because then I felt like I could move forward.
Mhm.
um yeah, those are my thoughts.
Good. I mean, great. It was yeah, you certainly gave me plenty to to work with.
Sorry.
But I'm trying to think. There were a few questions that I asked where it's like as soon as I asked them, I was like, "Oh, why did I do that?" Um, I will just say like my experience was like it felt I'm glad that that I was like, doing some good reflection because it actually was a real struggle. And
Sorry.
And it's, I mean, it's not like, it's not your fault. I mean, it's like, you know, I'm like learning skills where it's like, that shouldn't matter. But like, it just wasn't, what was a good challenge for me, what was challenging about this session was that it wasn't like a typical, oh, here's my feelings, let's go deeper thing. It felt more like a corralling of like what's going on type stuff.
Mhm.
And and I felt like a lot of my stuff like stayed cognitive. I don't know if I was like really getting to like pull in like your heart. And that's like honestly why I kept going back to the tug part of the story, because first I thought that was like the transition point, because all everything is like just facts, and it's stuff in the
Mhm.
past, and it's all content, and you know, exploring like that stuff. But that was like the moment where it's like it's presenting like a conflict, right? Like, or like a present
Mhm.
thing. Um and then yeah, I at the end I was like, I thought about, well, I wonder how she would respond if I just talked about God, because you know, like knowing you, like I mean, like, you know, such a personal like part of this real relationship. So it's like here's a third person almost, and let's talk
Mhm.
about this third person and what his relationship is like for you. And so I'm really glad that like that did give you a sense of um like in a way like a sense of like settledness at the end,
Mhm.
because I wasn't sure how I was going to help do that.
Land the plane.
I wasn't, yeah, like I actually was like struggling trying to find the right threads to reflect, to like continue in the attunement, because I didn't think we
Mhm.
were there for like goal setting at all. There was a moment where I was like, I almost did it, and it was like we weren't there yet. And so I'm really glad that like the God thing worked out, because that was my last shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Genuinely, I'm
Yeah.
glad that like it was
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, no, it was helpful. I feel like yeah, it's just such a confusing situation for me that,
Hmm.
and I feel like in a longer thing, like I could kind of say, okay, this, I feel like, yeah, like this stuff happened. Okay, now this is what's happening. And I feel like I purposely, like, you actually touched on a couple things where I felt like um some like active emotion of like
Mm,
tearing and stuff, and I didn't want to go there. So I steered
mm.
it away. I steered
Oh
away
no.
from that.
Sabotage.
So I sabotaged because I don't want to sit and cry. If we had an hour and you
Yeah.
know, I wasn't being filmed, maybe, or even if I don't care that much about being filmed, but if I had a place to like really unpack it, and then but then you would have to be my homework partner next week, because then I'd need to keep
Yeah.
going. But um I didn't want to cry.
All right.
So
It's
I
fine.
didn't go to the deeply emotional parts, but it made me realize like, oh, this is more emotional than
Yeah.
I mean, it is I have a lot of emotions about it, but I felt active hurt and pain
Hmm.
talking about some of the things. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I feel like I need to think of a more succinct way to say it to
Mm.
get the cognitive across quicker, maybe. But I was not wanting to go super into that. I felt like a
Okay.
live wire, and I was
Fair
like,
enough.
I don't
Fair
want,
enough.
I don't want to do that. So sorry. I hope I didn't sabotage too bad. But a
I'm just,
real client is gonna maybe steer away from their emotions. I felt like
oh yeah.
I felt like you continually brought it back to the emotions, and I was like, okay,
Okay.
I need to face some of this.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
I felt like that you were good with that. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That was wrong.
That's wrong.
That was wrong. It's great.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna stop recording.
Deal.